In the year 1997, the future is in chaos and turmoil. Mankind is on the brink of extinction. Brave survivors band together and build a time displacement apparatus to receive a signal from a parallel future. This transmission is the Bundacast.
There's one team that kicks ass. They're assembled. They're the Bundacast. Never back down from the brass. Always start first. Never finish last. Had a mock speed. Bit too fast. Oh no, they're out of gas. It's okay there. Just a podcast. They're the greatest. We're the Bundacast.
Welcome to the Bundacast. I am your host, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. No, it's not. It's me, Steve, the true host of the Bundacast.
Oh my god, I wasn't ready for your fucking Mr. McMahon voice.
And this is the podcast that knows that the only thing that anyone should be inducted in is the Kiss My Ass Club. With me today is our Triple Crown champion co-host, the They of Days, D-Rock. How you doing, D-Rock?
I'm doing good. I had a good weekend. It was a lot of fun. I'm excited to get into it.
I think D-Rock maybe, the way Hulkamania raged in the 80s, WrestleMania raged in D-Rock's heart this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, not so much WrestleMania. I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah. There was a little bit of
The concept of a WrestlingMania is
the mania of wrestling that was this past weekend was definitely running wild in D-Rock's heart for sure.
So where do you want to begin?
Where to begin? I just like the where I want to begin is kind of just reflecting on what an awesome weekend this was just for wrestling in general. I just like, I mean, it kind of swept over me, and I was just like swept up in the whole like energy of this whole week. I wasn't, I was just watching from home, but between the Fight TV had that coverage of like the convention center and WrestleCon and stuff, and just watching a bunch of different shows. And actually the Fight TV coverage kind of got me more hyped about like, giving you the feeling of like being there in the convention center, and it made me feel like, oh man, this is like a whole event, and got me really excited about. And I ended up buying like probably too many wrestling shows, more than I probably should have been paying money for, but it was totally worth it. And just like all the like new wrestlers that I discovered this weekend, and new people that I just added on Twitter and stuff and have been interacting with and getting excited about wrestling with, and it's just been a really fucking cool thing to be a part of, and really makes me want to save up and be there in person next year when it's in Los Angeles. I just like it. I feel like it would be so amazing to be able to experience it live and in person.
For sure. So what is the best pay-per-view then you watched this weekend?
The best show, let's see, of the weekend. It's tough because I watched a lot of different stuff. I really was. I was especially happy that out of the shows that I watched an all black wrestling show. I watched an all women's wrestling show. I watched an all queer wrestling show.
Okay, so who was the best? The queers, the blacks, the women?
And
Who was the best decisively?
I'm getting there. I'm trying to build. I know we're trying to keep this svelte, but I'm just, there's a lot to say. I'm just really happy that I get to support all of those things is what I was going to say. And I would say wrestling wise, it would have to be Supercard of Honor was kind of the hands down the wrestling champion of the weekend. As far as the show that I enjoyed the most, definitely Effy's Big Gay Brunch it's always a highlight for me, especially as queer non-binary person. But it's also just like the funnest show, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Effy's Big Gay Brunch is definitely like, it has like all of the, it just has so much character, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's like a Royal Rumble for the entire, length of the
Right.
pay-per-view with prizes and excitement and funny things happening and interesting things.
Yeah, I feel like the sort of queerness of it, and it kind of makes them kind of lean more into a lot of like the cool, campy, fun parts of wrestling. And at the same time, they have a lot of other, more serious stuff. We'll get into it in a little bit, but yeah, I think it was my favorite. It was my favorite. Best show would probably be Supercard of Honor, but my favorite was Effy's Big Gay Brunch.
Yeah, I love me some Big Gay Brunch. Yeah, that's probably the most like consistently fun, non-boring chunk of pay-per-view I saw.
Yeah, for sure. And we did it up. We had donuts. We had a little brunch style festivities. So that was cool.
Yep, some coffee, some munchkins.
Yeah, we did it up. Maybe next year we'll have mimosas.
Okay, so if we're on the topic of Big Gay Brunch, I think my favorite match of the Big Gay Brunch was the International Scramble with Kid Bandit, Shea Purser, Rico Gonzalez, Killian McMurphy, Silvio Milano, Jordan Blade, and then there was a surprise 7th entrant into the scramble, and it was the Whisper.
The Whisper, that's right, yeah.
And there was such fun gimmicks on display, like Shea Purser, who is a black belt in Shea Fu, and like is like wrestling in like a full gi, and then he does this
with the rainbow belt.
Yeah,
He has a rainbow belt.
And then he does this bit where he like gets down on the floor and he has his legs wide open and he's like, "Enter my guard, enter my guard." And no one took him up on it, but I want to see how good he is in his guard now.
I know, right? Yeah, we never got to see. Yeah, the scramble was awesome. I mean, anytime on like, regardless of what kind of GCW show, because they have obviously so many different kinds of shows that you got to see even just this weekend. Whenever they do a scramble, it's always super fun and super fun in a way that is very specific to the show. Like Big Gay Brunch has a scramble and it's like all these fun gimmicks, but it's also like work rate and fucking awesome wrestlers killing it. Kid Bandit is fucking nuts. I love them. And they're like that transgender airbender kick that they do. That's awesome. So nuts. If I was gonna pick a favorite, like there's so many matches on this that I want to put over.
No, there was a lot of great matches. Dark Sheik versus Pero was great.
That was great. And I love the Effy getting involved and continuing the feud with Pero was really great.
Max the Impaler versus Edith Surreal was awesome.
That was, yeah, I love that match. That was, and I definitely want to see more of Maxi Impaler. I need to start watching some Impact.
Bill Dixon versus Keita Murray was really good.
I love Bill Dixon. He's great.
And
Alley Catch versus Dirty Dango was a lot of fun. Did a little lap dance off for each other.
Which that chair spot is the one that I told my coworkers about the most today during the workday.
Oh, really?
I was like, that's the way Fandango does chair spots now. He's like, chairs aren't chairs are for lap dances.
Nice.
And then of course Effy.
Yes, I would say if I had a favorite match, it was Effy facing off against the legendary Exotico from Mexico. I think she's from Mexico. Pimpinella Escarlata, who is somebody that I think Steven and I were first introduced to through Lucha Underground. She did a couple of appearances there, and they kind of filled people in on the history of Pimpinella Escarlata, who has been doing this for like decades and was like outselling all of your favorite wrestlers back in like the 70s and 80s and shit.
Yeah, man, Piro always put a lot of respect on Pimpy's name.
Yeah, for sure. So that was a lot of fun. Effy, like, was very, he let her come out second because, she's a legend. He gave a whole speech at the end about what a legend she is. And of course, the match was super fun, featuring Pimpinella biting Effy's ass and his cock, which, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. That's pure wrestling right there.
That's the tip of the mountain right there.
Yeah.
That's the pinnacle.
Wrestling has peaked.
It was a fantastic show. The only match that we haven't really mentioned is Carlos Romo versus J Vidal, which was also really good.
That's right. And J Vidal is a Miami boy, 305. Repping 305.
Super cool.
Just very cool.
Also Edith Surreal came off like they always come off super duper tough,
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like a lot of the monsters, sort of dominated.
Yeah,
in the Big Gay Brunch,
for sure.
And I'd like to see, some of the more comedic wrestlers get some wins.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And Edith Surreal, I don't know exactly where else they wrestle, but they always definitely impress me. I think I saw them in a match. They might have had a match against like Janai Kai or somebody last Big Gay Brunch that I was really impressed with. But yeah, everything on this show was super impressive and super good and super fun. Definitely my favorite show of the weekend. So yeah, and that was we got the all queer show. There was I'll kind of go off on a little tangent really quick about For the Culture was the all black show of the weekend, GCW For the Culture, which had some awesome fucking matches as well. AJ Gray versus Darius Lockhart, don't go check that out if you haven't. And Hoodfoot and Billy Dixon once again. They had apparently the first ever all black death match, which was really, really cool to see. And that was really good. I would check that out as well. I was really impressed with this guy, AJ Francis, this huge guy who does a surprisingly good moonsault. I was very impressed by that. And was really happy for Big Swole that she got to open the For the Culture show after, everything that she's been through in the past several months for the culture, so to speak. Got to see Trisha Dora. She's always amazing. Got to see JTG really impressed me. I had never seen JTG wrestle, and he was very impressive as well. So really great show. Definitely check it out if you can. I also mentioned the all women's show, Mission Pro Wrestling had a show called Bangers Only that also had a ton of really, really great matches. I loved Holidead versus Lufisto for the MPW title was a great match. I really like Holidead, her whole gimmick and everything is really cool. Thunder Rosa versus Trisha Dora. If you haven't seen, check that out. It's a banger. It's, you know, on Bangers Only, of course. Lindsay Snow was also really impressed. She had a match with Masha Slamovich that I was surprised that she won that match. I had never really heard of her. She was really, really impressive. But I definitely didn't expect her to go over Masha Slamovich. And she did, which was really, really cool and really interesting.
And Masha's somebody who's really like coming up and doing a lot of crazy stuff. She's had some crazy.
She's like legit one of the toughest wrestlers there in the world, like regardless of gender. She is a badass. So to see Lindsay Snow beat her was like, oh, it got me really even more interested in Lindsay Snow than I already was, and she was really impressive already. Jody Threat versus La Rosa Negra was really good. Janai Kai versus Shazza McKenzie was really good. So that was a really awesome show.
Oh, sweet. Well. La Rosa Negra was there? That's awesome.
Yeah, she was great. She had a really great match with Jody Threat.
We saw her live like maybe like 7-8 years ago.
Oh, was she at one of those youth fair?
No, she was at that show that was in like that like War Memorial Center.
Oh, the women's yeah. Oh, I didn't even remember that. That's right.
And we got a picture with her, and she was like their champion at the time.
Is that her? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I now that you mention it, now like my image of her in my head, I'm like, oh, that is her. But I would never have made that connection because I think she's like way bigger now, actually.
Yeah, she's probably
much thicker. Yeah. So wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, and then just to kind of finish off all of these shows that I watched that Steven did not, because I watched way too much wrestling this weekend. Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8, which is also under the GCW umbrella. Well, I thought this was really cool. Some people find it kind of corny, which I sort of understand because it's like, oh, these are quote unquote shoot fights because they're like worked. They're sort of worked shoot fights, but I don't even really see it that way. Like I think of it like it's just a different set of rules, which I find really cool, and it brings really unique performances out of wrestlers that you've seen do regular wrestling, but you've never seen them do anything like this necessarily, because there's no ropes, there's no pinfalls. The matches can only end by referee stoppage for a submission, a knockout, a disqualification, or a count out. And so a lot of the matches ended with like, you know, regular submissions, but a lot of the matches also ended with somebody just getting instant critical by a huge blow to the head or something. And the ref would just come in and like call it off because the guy was knocked out, which I thought was a really cool dynamic. And you got to see guys like John Moxley, Chris Dickinson, Minoru Suzuki. I've heard about his sort of MMA background, but I've never seen him do anything sort of like this. And even guy like Ninja Mac I was really interested to see like how he would play this, because he's so known for his, you know, high flying, jumping off of crazy shit. And for this match, he sort of leaned more on his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Muay Thai background and did a really cool match. And he actually took off his mask for this match, which was really cool because it just kind of fit with the aesthetic of the whole thing for him to just be like, no, I'm just gonna, you know, he's just like this beardy guy, which was really cool. And his match with Yoya had an awesome finish where he just did one of those big spin kicks and just came down super hard on him. and just blasted him. But a lot of great matches on the card. John Moxley versus Biff Busick was probably the match of the night for that one. But also JR Kratos versus Timothy Thatcher was really good. I was really impressed with Thatcher. And his kind of like, he has great facials. He has this like sadistic look that he has. Chris Dickinson versus Minoru Suzuki was excellent. And Chris Dickinson went over, which I thought was a good call. They actually main evented the last Bloodsport, and Minoru Suzuki beat him. And Chris Dickinson has been out with an injury for quite some time. And so to give him that win to kind of get him back on track was really cool. Masha Slamovich had a match with Janai Kai that was dope as fuck. Very cool to see those ladies mix it up in this weird context. And also John Hennigan and Simon Gotch had a really cool match that is like, like all these guys that you wouldn't necessarily expect them to have this sort of style in their repertoire, but it's cool to see them in this like different context. So I really like that show a lot.
That's awesome. And
that's it for things that only I watched. So let's start
So out of like, so you only watch like maybe like 4 or 5 of like the what, like 20 GCW shows that they have?
Yeah, I think there was like a combo pack of like 12 of them that you could get for like $140. And like legit, if I had that kind of money, I would have bought it. If I don't get to go to LA next year, I at least want to save up enough money to buy that combo pack, because I wish I could have watched them all. There was a bunch of other there are shows that I really wanted to watch that I didn't buy because I was like, I need to stop spending so much money, like Joey Janela's Spring Break, the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show, Gringo Loco's World on Lucha. I really wanted to watch all of these, but there's only so much money for wrestling, as Steven told me wisely on Thursday before I spent so much money.
But you did anyway, so it's all good.
I did anyway, yeah, but not too much. So
Friday night was dominated by ROH Supercard of Honor, the first ROH pay-per-view in the new Tony Khan era of ROH.
Yeah, and if it's any indication as to the direction of ROH, it's going to be good. I mean, Tony, people make fun of Tony Khan a lot, but and a lot of people want to laugh at the idea that he's the best booker in wrestling right now, but I mean, the results speak for themselves a lot of the time, and this show was really good.
So the best match of the night, or the most revered match of the night,
the best. Let's be real.
I don't know. I think it's a little bit of, it's just become like the critical consensus. I don't necessarily agree with it. Like,
really,
it was a good match. It was a fun match.
Reason.
But I don't know, I don't always like my vegetables and stuff. I don't know. It was fun. It was hard hitting. Was the Briscoes defending their tag team championships versus FTR. And it felt like the longest match of the card.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, for sure. It was almost 30 minutes, I think.
And it was the first match that Tony Khan advertised for the show. Other elements of the show were advertised before he was involved, and he sort of adhered to that as best he could.
Mm-hmm.
But FTR Briscoes is like really what he said is like he knew this would be the match that would define this show.
Mm-hmm.
And he highlighted it in that way. And FTR looked like $1 million.
Absolutely, yeah. So did the Briscoes, though. I had never seen the Briscoes in action before. I'm ashamed to say, but I was very impressed with their, their
That's
old
not
school
true.
style, brawling style. They're also their
Didn't
like
we? You saw the
sophisticated.
Briscoes. You saw the Briscoes before.
Did I?
Didn't we see the Briscoes lose the GCW Tag Team Championships to Nick Gage and the other guy whose name I can't remember?
Was
At the
that
end.
was that on the Hammerstein show?
Yeah, that was the end of the Hammerstein show. That they just didn't have a lot of time.
Wow.
Quick match.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, it was. They didn't have a lot of time, so it had to be a quick match, and they got knocked out.
Yeah, I think
didn't get to see them
I've
their full
forgotten that whole entire show because it was kind of lackluster, but I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, but they beat the Second Gear Crew for the GCW tag belts, and then they dropped them to Nick Gage and the other guy. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Yeah, and they actually defended them over the weekend at another show that I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, I really thought, like, I don't know, I probably have to go back and rewatch it just to be sure of my opinion on this. But for me, FTR versus the Briscoes was like one of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen. I have it 6 stars, match of the year, hands down, but so far. That was just like, it's, to me, there's a reason why the consensus is that was the best match of the weekend. It was just and I wouldn't even be able to necessarily tell you a lot of specifics about it, about why I think that. It just was so good. It was such great tag team wrestling, which, FTR is always, got, they're always the kings of like really great tag team wrestling in terms of like the timing and the psychology of it. But it was just so great.
And then it ended with the Bucks beating down the Briscoes, and then FTR and the Bucks setting up their second match on AEW Dynamite this week, which will now be for both the ROH belts and the AAA belts are going to be on the line this time.
That's right. Yeah, and
the Young Bucks have held both of those titles.
Yes, they feuded over them for a while, I think. But I really hope that this is eventually leading to a triple threat between FTR, the Briscoes, and the Young Bucks, because that would be just so out of control. I can't even imagine. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. They set up the match on Dynamite. I liked how they did the heel move of FTR wanted to fight right now, and they were like, no, that's a great match for Wednesday.
Yeah,
that was a nice little touch. I also really, I have mixed feelings about promoting anything Jay Lethal because of the accusations that still hang around him. But I do have to admit that his match with Lee Moriarty was probably my other highlight of Supercard of Honor. Their match was really, really good. And the ending was excellent, with Jay Lethal turning heel as he sort of saw that he didn't feel like he could beat Lee Moriarty cleanly, and he decided to take the easy way out. And for a guy who like apparently trained Lee Moriarty, like, was such a great bit of storytelling, I thought.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell this card, or this pay-per-view was built in a way to move Lee Moriarty and Wheeler Yuta, forward in the wrestling universe.
Absolutely.
and spotlight them in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
I did enjoy Jay Lethal's heel turn, which I think was ultimately, finished by the end of the night or completed. I wonder how that's gonna cross over into AEW now.
Yeah, especially with him kind of forming an alliance with Sanjay Dutt, which was really cool, especially for those of us who used to watch TNA in the days of those guys tearing it up in the X division. That should be a lot of fun to see how that plays out. And it also gave us the other highlight of the night, which was the Ring of Honor return of Samoa Joe, which was a really, really cool moment. Even though it was kind of expected, everybody kind of knew it was going to either be him or Cesaro, aka Claudio Castagnoli. But it was still a very cool moment. His theme music is on point. He looks ready to rock and roll in Ring of Honor, and he's also going to be in AEW and wants to be, wants all of the championships according to him at the media scrum. So it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, and he showed up to hypothetically save / challenge Jonathan Gresham, who retained his title against Bandito. And finally,
Also an awesome match. Another awesome match.
And they solved the dispute as to who was the true ROH champion. I like the storytelling of the match. I like them adding Chavo just so that they could get rid of Chavo and restore honor and stuff. And Bandito's a fucking awesome wrestler.
Yeah, he is really good. I was really very impressed with Bandito.
The other big surprises of the night were Ninja Mac's opponent for the night, which was revealed to be the new clients of Tully Blanchard Enterprises, Brian the Machine Cage, who's been missing off AEW TV since he lost the FTW belt to Ricky Starks.
Yeah, that was cool. I really wish, like, if they were gonna do a Brian Cage squash match, I wish they hadn't gotten Ninja Mac to be the jobber for Brian Cage, because like it makes me like, I wonder how many people who tuned into this show even really knew who Ninja Mac was, and this is kind of an opportunity for him to showcase for some people what he can do, and what he can do is something that I haven't seen anybody else do on his level. And I really wish he could have gotten a chance to kind of show off a little bit more, because he is a legit badass and one of both of our favorite wrestlers, I think, ever since we discovered him a few months back at GCW Homecoming.
Yeah, Ninja Mac is one of those people who was like put on the card before Tony Khan got involved. So I don't know how much Tony Khan, cares about spotlighting Ninja Mac. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think, I wish that someone had approached Tony and been like, yo, this dude is like nothing you've ever seen before. You should probably not just feed him to Brian Cage.
Yeah.
But it was cool to see Brian Cage and see Tully's new sort of stable that he's formed with the tag team whose name I can't remember right now.
The Gates of Agony.
The Gates of Agony. Great name. I don't know why I didn't remember that, because it's pretty badass. So that was really cool. Mercedes Martinez and Willow Nightingale had a really good match that most of the crowd wasn't very reactive to, because that's that's the way that goes.
Well, it was a small crowd, and everyone at wrestling in Dallas that weekend was like tired and like going to multiple shows, Because I know
Yeah.
specifically, like, people I was following on Twitter, like, had tickets to ROH Supercard of Honor and left ROH Supercard of Honor halfway through to go to Impact Multiverse of Matches at the same time.
Oh my God.
You know, so
Wow.
yeah. If people are tag teaming, everything, just trying to watch the matches they want to see. So
yeah, I mean,
don't really give a
and
shit about the crowd.
the thing is, like, FTR and the Briscoes went on right after that, and the crowd was out of their fucking minds before they even started wrestling. So, like, the idea that they were all tired and that's why they didn't react to the women's match. I mean, I don't know, but it was a really good match, so I don't want to complain too much. And all the title matches I think we mentioned were really good. Minoru Suzuki is the new ROH television champion, which I guess means that Minoru Suzuki is going to be on ROH television.
Yeah, that was
whenever
a super awesome surprise.
Yeah,
It's
very cool.
unclear whether ROH TV will continue the way it is currently.
Yeah, like on Fight, or if they're gonna like make a YouTube show, or I don't know what they're gonna do, but I'm really excited to see what they do with the ROH weekly TV show. And we have to mention Dalton Castle and the Baby Chicks were one of the highlights of my entire weekend. I love Dalton Castle and the Baby Chicks and would love to see him added to Effy's Big Gay Brunch maybe next year. I don't know if he is.
Add him to everything.
In fact, huh?
Add him to everything.
Yeah, obviously, yes, of course. I don't know whether he is in any way LGBTQ or not, but his gimmick is 100%. So I don't think it even matters. Like, he add him to all the things, like Steven said, and I really hope he has some really fun stuff for whenever ROH starts making a television show again. And one other thing that both Steven and I were a little bit meh about was, surprisingly, Shane Strickland versus Alex Zane was a fun match. It was, it had a lot of good action, but it was a style of wrestling that I think both of us are a little 50-50 about, in terms of just hitting these insane moves that would, like, in theory would just murder people on the spot, and like hitting like 3 in a row and still kicking out of all of that is something that we are not very keen on. So even though that match was a lot of fun, it also kind of took us out of it, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. The Supercard of Honor, I don't know, it had like a big pay-per-view feel, but I felt like production-wise, it wasn't quite there. You know what I mean? It still felt like a smaller pay-per-view, like,
yeah,
as far as like the cameras and like the camera work and the production, but like the feel of it and what was going on felt like it was a bigger, more important pay-per-view.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, ROH has always been sort of very pure wrestling aesthetic. It's kind of what AEW was at the very beginning of AEW kind of reminds me a little bit of what ROH was kind of like. Just like everybody has 20-minute matches and everything is finisher kickouts and all that very indie wrestling or indie wrestling of that time, at least, of the sort of mid to late 2000s, I think it was, and even early 2010s was very serious, self-serious about it. And so there was some of that on this show also. There was also a little bit of variety with something like Dalton Castle or something like, you know, what's it called? Colt Cabana had a fun little comedy match at on the pre-show. So it should be interesting to see what direction they take going forward with Tony Khan booking it. If they might go a little bit more into the sports entertainment side the way AEW has, which I definitely prefer. You know, I like a little bit more variety. The way that GCW has is very like deceptively, you know, variety oriented. That we kind of discovered that when we started getting into GCW through Homecoming, through the Matt Cardona story and all of that. We kind of started to realize that, oh, they have a lot of different stuff. Mm-hmm. And I hope that ROH kind of leans a little bit more in that direction also, in its own unique way.
And now time to talk about the main event.
Well, do we want to talk about briefly about the little bit of Stand and Deliver that we saw, or do we want to just skip right over that?
If you have thoughts about it, I think it was pretty meh to have thoughts about them.
Right. No. I mean, the only thought that I have about it is every tweet that I saw, like especially after the show was over, every tweet that I saw on my timeline about NXT 2.0 Stand and Deliver was, you know, that wasn't bad. Like it was a lot of like damning with faint praise, like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, you know, kind of stuff, which is ironically, or maybe not ironically, a pretty accurate description, I think, of NXT Stand and Deliver. It was better than I thought it would be, but not anything that I would like start watching because of this show.
Yeah.
So
I'm just happy Dolph Ziggler has a belt and has some praise and is being spotlighted in a big way. That's good for him.
Yeah, it's about time. And it's kind of, well, it's probably like 7 years too late, but what are you going to do?
Hey, who knows? Dolph Ziggler could be the next WWE champion.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. He could be the guy to beat Roman, huh?
He's going to unify NXT and the Universal Championship and the Heavyweight Championship.
All the world titles.
Into one WWE NXT Universal.
And then come to AEW, win that title. And then come to ROH and win that title.
No, whoa, the true belt collector, Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah.
He's here to show the world.
But now, yes, we should move on to the main event, WrestleMania 38, which was, I would say,
for years, people wanted 2 nights of WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, the last few years of having it on one night and it was getting into the 6-7 hour range with the pre-show. People were definitely screaming for like, please make this 2 nights so that we don't die by the end of the fucking show.
I disagree. I want it to be 1 night again. I miss 1 night.
I would like, I mean, and now that they've done 2 nights a couple times, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that the way that WWE does a 2-night show makes me want them to go back to doing 1 night, because it just like, I think the complaint people had about the shows being too long was that there's too much. You're trying to pack too much into this one show, and making it 2 nights just kind of gives them license to fluff it up even more with all these like recaps, commercials, like all kinds of stuff that just, you know, the numbers that are going around Twitter is like, there was like a total of 3 hours and 12 minutes of bell-to-bell wrestling in the 8 hours of WrestleMania. And it's like, you know, on Revolution, on a 4-hour show, Revolution, there was 3 hours and 15 minutes of wrestling. So like, yeah, I mean, and some of that is fine, you know, like that's what WrestleMania is about. But some of it is like, I mean, how many times do we need to see the Hall of Fame? How many times do we need to see the same Snickers commercial? My God, we wanted to murder the Snickers commercial. And the recaps and just like, yeah, I mean, I would love for them to go back to one night and trim the fat and make it like at least under 6 hours, you know, ideally closer to 5 or 5.5, maybe.
Yeah, give me a solid 5-hour WrestleMania.
Give me a
Come
solid
on.
where everything matters. And like this 8-hour show, we didn't even have an Intercontinental title match. We didn't have a US title match. We didn't have the Andre the Giant Battle Royale. All of that was like relegated to SmackDown because they couldn't even fit it on this 8-hour, 2-day WrestleMania. So just give me a lean cut, like good 5. You know what's crazy? WrestleMania 12 was less than 3 hours.
What?
I never knew that. It was like 2.5 hours or something like that. And like a really good show. There was only like 5 or 6 matches, and one of them was the Hollywood Backlot Brawl, you know? So a lot of that was, the OJ footage playing over the match. But yeah, just give me like a good lean 5.5 hour show of like consequential stuff. Throw in some celebrities, like that's fine, but like, you know, you don't need 8 hours of WrestleMania just to put every stupid idea and every wrestler that you employ on the show. And, you know, yeah. So I would love them
That's the
to
point
go
of the
back.
Andre the Giant Battle Royale, is to put everybody on the show.
Right. That's kind of why it was originally conceived, I think, in a way.
Give everyone a spot.
Right.
Bring
Exactly.
people backdoor into WrestleMania.
So, but so having said that, I would say that this WrestleMania probably slightly exceeded my expectations. In general, there were a lot of great highlights that we can go through right now, if you want, or if there's anything else you wanted to say about general
No, we covered the general
stuff. Obviously, I think we can all agree the best match of WrestleMania was Bianca Belair winning the Raw Women's title from Becky Lynch. Would you agree, Steven?
Not for me. I
No?
liked it. I thought it was a really good match, but that wasn't my favorite match.
Wasn't your favorite match? Was it Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins?
Yeah, if there's any match I'm gonna rewatch on this WrestleMania, it's gonna be that.
That was definitely one of the highlights for me. I think the match itself, I'd like to go back and watch it again. Just I remember it being like good and also kind of a very like Triple H sort of match, that slow plotting, you know, storytelling. It was long. It was a really long match. It was like 25 minutes, I think. And I feel like I'm not sure if it was better than I remember it or worse than I remember it, but I remember it being good, like 4 stars.
I think it was a very good pairing to start Cody there.
Definitely.
And I think they pulled out a great match. I don't know. It's possible that this is going to become the first feud for Cody will be against Seth. But immediately Cody beating Seth, it sort of, you know, puts over everyone in AEW who faced Cody and, you know, got a win. Like all of a sudden now, in my eyes, you know, Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin, you know, they're on the same level as Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins has been, you know, one of the best wrestlers in the world for a few years now.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a fair assessment. I think there's a lot sort of subliminally about Cody Rhodes coming in and being treated like such royalty in a way that does sort of put over AEW in a lot of ways. And I think, people are saying like that WWE's treatment of Cody Rhodes is they're sort of seeing it as an advertisement for other AEW people that want to come over. But I saw a take on Twitter that I thought was really interesting of it's also a really good advertisement for WWE talent that wants to jump to AEW. They could go over there and make a star out of themselves when WWE is not necessarily giving them the room to become a star. And the result of that could be them coming back to WWE, or it could be them just continuing in AEW and being a star over there. But it's definitely an endorsement for, hey, you can make a name for yourself over here if they're not letting you make a name for yourself over there. That's why you're seeing guys like, like you're seeing everybody that was released that are like, oh, this company over here is going to treat me like the big deal that all of my fans wanted them to treat me as. And then I can make a name for myself, and I can, make a really great career out of this.
Yeah.
So
as we're recording this, Monday Night Raw is happening. I know Monday Night Raw opened with Cody opening up the first 20 minutes of Monday Night Raw and cutting a promo on, basically how he wants Dusty had one photo in his bedroom, and it was Dusty holding the WWF championship that he never won because he won by count out, and you couldn't win that belt by count out. And he wanted to always, and his dream has always been to carry that lineage of belts.
Right.
So that's why he's in WWE. And immediately Seth Rollins came out and just maniacally laughed at him and shook his hand and then walked away.
Nice.
So it's an interesting start for Cody, but putting him front and center on Monday Night Raw to start the show after Mania, that's a huge spot.
It is. And I think I'm really interested to see how much they keep up that energy for Cody, how much they're going to continue treating him as big a deal as they're treating him now going forward.
Hilarious side note. So the way they do Monday Night Raw now isn't really advantageous for the Cody Vader that lifts him up and does his entrance.
Oh, really?
Because their entrance now is like on the floor, right?
Oh, for real?
So to do Cody's entrance, they had to build like a little stage with the Cody Vader in it. And then Cody couldn't, he can't stand all the way up in the Cody Vader. It's like too short. So when they cut to Cody coming up from the elevator, it was just his head sticking out of the hole. The elevator turned on, and then the elevator turned on, and then he went up. You could just see his head just sticking out of the hole. It was hilarious.
Oh no! Oh man, that's hilarious. So yeah. So some other highlights for me, at least. In a lot of ways, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn sort of stole the weekend to some extent, because Kevin Owens had it was supposed to be a talking segment to close out night one of WrestleMania, and ended up being an actual no holds barred match with none other than the rattlesnake himself, Stone Cold Steve Austin, for the first time in 19 years, wrestled. He wrestled longer than like half of the people on. He wrestled longer. His match was longer than Brock and Roman.
Whoa.
Which might have something to do with it. It seems like Roman might have gotten injured in that match, and that's why they kind of cut it short. But he wrestled longer than a lot of people on this card, and took some bumps. He took a bump on the concrete. It was like a really fun, really good match.
Yeah, it was a fun brawl. It's it's so funny how Steve Austin's matches have evolved from like this like really like bitter, tough, like hardcore feud to like now it's just this like cartoon match where this guy's just
Yeah.
spewing beer everywhere and just
Yeah.
throwing a million punches, and it's fun, but it's silly too.
Yeah, and like I mean the match itself was a pretty good like classic Steve Austin brawl, but also Kevin Owens, like he deserves a huge round of applause for how good he made Steve Austin look at 57 years old. He did a great job of sort of carrying that match, and I'm happy for him
and proving
his,
that he can hang on the microphone with him and is
yeah,
truly as good on the mic as Stone Cold. Like he's
absolutely, yeah. Kevin Owens had a great weekend, and Sami Zayn, I think in a very different way, also had a great weekend, because I can't even believe that I'm saying this, but Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn had the match of the night at WrestleMania Night 2. It was just so much fun. It was exactly what it needed to be. It was silly, it was ridiculous. It was a combination of like the silliest parts of the Attitude Era
it
and
was
the silliest
orchestrated
parts of
by
Jackass.
It was orchestrated by Hurricane Helms apparently,
Oh, was it? That's very cool.
which makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, so it was kind of this mashup of like silly Attitude Era and like Jackass stunts, and it was exactly what it needed to be. I mean, Chris Pontius came out as Party Boy. I popped for that. Wee Man showed up from underneath the ring, and I popped for that too. He did a fucking
Body
like
slam.
really good body, like really good form on his body slam of Sami Zayn. There's like gifs of it now going around, and it's pretty impressive. So that match was super duper fun, and definitely one that I hope I can go back and rewatch at some point, because I remember like maybe like 3 to 5 minutes into it, I was like, why is this so good? Like I couldn't believe that I was actually enjoying this, but it was really, really fun.
Yeah, it was just silly fun. It was a good time.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
Um,
There were a few other things that I also was enjoyed or was impressed by. Both of the tag title scrambles, the women's and the men's, were really good matches. Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan are every gay fantasy right now, and my timeline was thirsting over them tremendously. Pat McAfee, I had already kind of known that he was really taking his wrestling training seriously and was pretty impressive. And this is, I think, the first time I've seen him actually wrestle a full match, and he was impressive. He was really like, he really takes this seriously, and he looked good.
yeah, that one moment where he came off the top rope with a flip and then
Mm-hmm.
did a full jump back up to the top rope and then did a suplex.
Yeah,
with
that
Austin
was
Theory off the top rope. That was just superb.
very impressive. Very impressive.
super
Not so impressive. So was the Vince McMahon stuff afterwards, but
No,
We'll
but I
get
think
to
it was
that.
a great. I think it was worth having the Pat McAfee match in the spot it was
Well,
for the payoff of Vince, getting one more chance at his feud with Stone Cold.
I think I would say that I agree with, I think it was either Sean Ross Sapp or it might have been David Bixenspan that was like, we really didn't need to go through a whole Vince McMahon versus Pat McAfee match to get to Stone Cold stunning him. Like, we could have skipped over that and gotten to that part.
You're not. You guys aren't looking at it from the perspective of Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee got to live the boyhood dream. He got to have a great match at WrestleMania. He got to have a shitty match at WrestleMania. And then he got to take a Stone Cold Stunner. Come on.
Yeah.
And
that gif of him still drinking his beer on the floor will live on forever. That's going to be in WrestleMania video packages forever, I'm sure. No, probably not because it's beer, but that was amazing. And also we have to mention Mr. McMahon Mr. McMahon has a very long storied career of just terrible stunner cells, and he fucking outdid himself it almost seems like it could have been done on purpose for how bad it was, that he like dropped to one knee and then like stumbled back, and Stone Cold was like trying to grab him so he could stun him, and then he took the stunner and he like collapsed onto his knees, and it was just like the most awkward thing ever. The best part was watching Stone Cold just laugh his ass off afterwards at how horrible the bump was.
Stone
But
Cold
that
looked like he was having the most fun of his life, which is
he did.
pathetic.
It was really cool seeing him like running around like with his arms out, just like running around in a circle was really cool. It was like a little kid. So that stuff was fun. Not sure that 76-year-old Mr. McMahon should be wrestling in 2022, but I'll let it slide. It was only 3 minutes, and it produced some memorable moments. So I'll go with it. I was also fairly impressed with Bobby Lashley versus Omos. I didn't expect that to be much of anything, or Omos, I guess is how it's pronounced. Omos was like better than I expected him to be. He's still obviously
I
very
don't even remember
green.
who won.
Bobby Lashley won.
Okay.
Yeah. He he outsmarted him and used his veteran wiles to get the win. But Omos, clearly they've been kind of teaching him a very specific move set to sort of get him through his matches, and he does his stuff well. He's a convincing, intimidating big guy, and that's sort of lacking in wrestling right now. And so I was like mildly impressed with Omos, and I think a little bit more of him now. I was kind of not that into the idea originally, but I think if I had any interest in watching Raw, I would be interested in seeing where his career goes.
Ultimately, I was disappointed by Roman versus Brock.
Yes.
I knew it was going to be a bunch of finishing moves going back to back to back, but I thought that they were going to, try to take it to the next level and like, get bloody and, really, make it what it was billed to be, which was the greatest WrestleMania match of all time,
Yeah, right.
because it has the greatest stakes of, both the WWE Championship and the Universal Championship.
Yeah.
And
supposedly that has a lot to do with Roman Reigns might have been injured in that match, and they may have had to cut it short, which it feels like they had to cut that match short because where it ended was very strange.
Yeah, it was just a random spear that just killed Brock Lesnar.
Right. So it maybe whatever they had booked could have been much better, but yes, it was definitely very underwhelming. I was really surprised how underwhelmed I was by Edge versus AJ Styles. I expected that to steal the show, possibly be the best match of the whole WrestleMania, and it was very reminiscent of like AJ Styles match with Shinsuke Nakamura at WrestleMania, where it was this sort of dream match, and then the whole thing was just really slow and never really got going and never really got much momentum, and it took way too long. It was almost 30 minutes long, I think, and it just was really underwhelming.
AJ can't wrestle the big one. What can you say?
I mean, he's wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom. I don't know, but it is for some reason he seems to. I mean, I saw his first WrestleMania match against Jericho, and that was a really, really good match. I was there for that live, and I remember actually being kind of annoyed that he lost that match. Like, why would you put Jericho over in that match? Especially when AJ Styles then entered into a program against Roman Reigns for the world title for like the next 2 or 3 pay-per-views. So why would he lose that match? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I just was not at all impressed with Edge versus AJ Styles, and I loved Edge's entrance. That was very cool. And we should mention also Bianca Belair had an awesome entrance. Cody Rhodes obviously had a really cool entrance. I'm trying to think if there were any other really cool entrances that I'm leaving out, but yeah, Edge had a really cool one, and yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
Sasha and Bianca had a good entrance, and ultimately they won the Raw Tag Championships,
which was great.
Was
I'm
cool.
big up to them, Black women making things happen. Bianca and Naomi and Sasha. It's a good time to be alive. And that was a really good match too. That was a lot of a fun one. That was not that long, but they did a lot of good stuff, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Any final thoughts over?
There was a couple other, Happy Corbin obviously is ridiculous, and Happy Corbin and Sad Corbin was kind of, that was weird. Some of the low lights for me, I think, were obviously not having Ricochet or Finn Balor, who are the Intercontinental and US champions respectively.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
We mentioned that earlier, but that was definitely a disappointment. Also, the fact that there were so many video packages and recaps that the New Day ended up getting pushed to night 2 and got squashed in 2 minutes, especially when they're paying tribute to their fallen brother who
I think it might have
his wrestling career ended.
But I think it makes perfect sense. It's a great way to get heat.
Is it? I mean, it could be the same sort of
the only
concept that it could be the same thing they did with Becky and Bianca, where Becky actually talked about it in an interview, like, well, if you do it this way, people really want to pull for her because she got robbed, she wasn't ready, she kind of had this taken from her, as opposed to if I just beat her in a match, I just beat her, and then like, who cares?
Yeah. I think, I've heard a lot of people upset about this. George was upset about this too, the New Day getting punked out like this.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it's annoying because this is a stupid group that Sheamus is in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it was like a better group of heels,
and what they've done to Pete Dunne is ridiculous. He looks like a kid. It's so dumb.
He looks like he's gonna be in Newsies.
But yeah, that's all I've all I've got. I mean, matches of the weekend. Should we run down a little list of top 5 matches or something like that?
Well, that's a frank gesture to come up with the top 5. What's your top 5?
My top 5, I would say top 5 matches for me of the weekend. Number 5 would be AJ Gray versus Darius Lockhart at For the Culture, GCW For the Culture. Number 4 would be John Moxley versus Biff Busick at Bloodsport. 3 would be Jay Lethal versus Lee Moriarty at Supercard of Honor. Number 2, of course, Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. And number 1 is pretty obvious, I think, based on what we've already talked about, but definitely FTR versus the Briscoes is my match of the year so far. So
whoa,
that's me.
I think I would go number 5, Cody versus Seth. Number 4, the International Scramble at Effy's Big Gay Brunch.
Nice.
Number 3 would be John Gresham versus Bandito.
Nice.
Number 2 would have to be Wheeler Yuta winning the ROH Pure Championship. And number 1, I think, is going to be Pimpy and Effy.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. I would also have to give some honorable mentions to that one, to Knoxville and Zane. I mean, I can't really put it in my top 5 in good conscience, but it was the most fun I had, I think, all weekend. And also Hoodfoot and Billy Dixon, shout out just for having the first ever all black death match.
Yeah.
So yeah, an amazing weekend. I'm kind of hungover from all the joy and positive energy that I was feeling throughout this weekend and how awesome it was. Getting to hang out with friends and watch WrestleMania, getting to hang out on social media and mark out over all these amazing indie shows and make new sort of wrestle friends and, start connecting with wrestlers that I discovered over the weekend and telling them how awesome they are. And it was just a really, really cool experience, which is crazy because I didn't really even experience it in person, but I experienced it just from home and, hanging out with friends and eating pizza and watching WrestleMania. And it was just a really great weekend. I had a really great time. I'm very happy.
Word. If you'd like to tweet with us, you can tweet us at Wundercast. Check us out on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, Wundercast Productions. I have been your host, Steven.
I have been your non-binary world champion, D-Rock.
And remember, kids, when you mess with the Briscoes, you mess with an uncertain amount of teeth, okay? If they bite you, they could do serious damage. Because a regular bite is constructed, but a bite that's missing teeth, you could really dig in deep. You could do some jagged damage. They're like vampires from Delaware.
Chicken farmers from Delaware.
Hail Wunder. Hail Wunder.
Wundercast? Give it up for Wundercast, man. What an adorable name.
You're listening to the Wundercast.
What's up, everybody? This is Jason David Frank, Green Ranger.
You are listening to Wundacast.
Subscribe to the Wundacast.